of influence, of course. We have landfill projects. Oh, I'm sorry. The projects that have a gray bar and white lettering a gray bar and white lettering that are partway across in the project name. If you follow me, those are projects that are new that were not on last year's capital program. So, in other words, materials recycling facility is a new project that you have not seen before. I think I might have said that in the staff report, but I just want to make that clear. So there are several pages of county facilities. Security systems and infrastructure I want to draw your attention to. This is essentially a public area hardening project where we would create better protection between the public area and staff areas, plexiglass windows and perhaps bulletproof walls and those kinds of things. Would happen countywide. Again, just to draw your attention to that.
Mr. Chairman, sorry for being so.
Please.
But I noticed that a couple of these pages have year one completely blank. Starting with storage shed demolition. These pages aren't numbered.
Well, again, don't be too concerned with the funding that's in there or not.
Well, that kind of gets back to my original question. So we as a planning commission don't care about dollars and funding and all that stuff.
Right.
As Commissioner Pierce articulated, our only review is whether this is consistent with the general plan.
Yes, that's correct. I did look at the statute before coming down. It's determine the consistency with the general plan.
Okay. Well, that's easy.
But the fact that there's no funding in there would mean that would be nothing happening in year one. It's on the list. It's on the wish list, the unconstrained project list, but we don't have any funding programmed for it. And the reason it's there and available for thinking about is so that the board can put funding with it if they so desire.
All right, so really the question before the Planning Commission is, do you, Planning Commission, agree that all of these things are consistent with the San Bernardino County General Plan?
And if there's stuff that's on here that you have questions about, let's talk about them. If there's stuff that is not on here that you think should be on here, absolutely, let's talk about putting that on.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Mr. Chair, I have a question.
I'm sorry.
On the homeless shelter, it shows 1161 San Felipe Road. When was that decision made?
The 1161 is the preferred site that we are advancing a property appraisal, preliminary design, preliminary engineering for renovation of the building at the board's direction. And assuming that all of those numbers fall into place and that we have a willing seller and a willing buyer, the board's tentative decision, expressed again today, is to move forward with that site.
It went to the board approximately, I would say, about a month or two ago
6
to
weeks,
talk about
maybe.
the options for the homeless shelter and various sites and which one to analyze for the CEQA purposes. No final decision's been made, but that's the one that's going to be studied in the CEQA document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but it was at the CEQA. That's what I remember. It was the CEQA document. So this is almost like a placeholder then.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question around that, Mr. Chair, and that would be 1161. What's the zoning on that? Is that in the special overlay that we have for emergency? What was that? What was that overlay?
Emergency shelter, emergency housing.
Or whatever.
Do you know offhand, Michael? I think it's in the city. I don't recall.
Yeah, 1161 is outside the emergency shelter. Emergency shelter is farther south.
No, San Felipe.
Yeah. 1161 San Felipe is north of the emergency shelter zone, which ends at about McCloskey and Wright.
So then Anthony's on the board, and hopefully the sound's still off. Anthony's on the board, and he sort of says, well, heck, we'll just give it a variance. Because he's an old planning commissioner, right? He goes, well, if it's inconsistent with the zoning, we just give it a variance on the zoning. So this was the only thing I had a question about, but because we need homeless shelters,
But
I don't think it will need a
I don't
variance.
think it's consistent with the zoning.
I think it would be consistent with the zoning with a conditional use permit.
I believe that's right.
I believe
That's
that
a manufacturing and light industrial manufacturing zoning out there.
I'd have to check on that. I'd have to
I
check.
don't
I can't
remember
speak to it.
specifically, but that's my understanding, that they would require a use permit.
They just-
I'd have to check.
We'll just give it a variance. Sure.
We could.
Okay.
Or they could
As long as we're legal, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'd-
Okay.
We'll look into it and let you know.
Okay.
And that's right next to all the offices, right? All the unemployment, mental health.
Literally within walking distance of the
What is it?
food
County
place and
services.
county services, and
Is that one of the old Raymond buildings they're looking at, or
no, it's
Raymond.
one next door.
next door?
it's DKL.
That's Raymond predates Brent by quite a ways.
Yeah,
Okay.
What do they call that now, though?
No, it's
it was an auto body shop for many years,
Oh.
okay.
and consequently, it's a large metal shell, and that's all it is.
So, Mr. Chairman, why don't I do that? I think this would probably be more helpful, just like if all of us just go through anything that piqued our interest.
Sure.
And these are mine. Kind of as a segue to my comments the other night, I see the River Regional Park has been allocated $200,000 in year one. The comment to that is only editorial, and that is this: that I think that the development of that river park system, I think, could be one of the greatest assets to this county. I think it would be akin to the River Parkway in Sacramento that goes along the American River, which
Or
I
San
enjoyed
Antonio,
for a lot
yeah.
of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope that would get some type of prioritization. On the Rocks Road Bridge,
Yes, sir.
Brent, where this is again, these pages aren't numbered, but
I'm
it's
sorry.
roads and bridges continued. Rocks Road Bridge replacement, is that closer to Earthbound and McAlpine, or is it underneath 101? This is my district, so I'm familiar with this road.
I believe it's the 101 area south of 156, 152. I can never remember which is which. It's out by 101 on the very west side, on the south end.
Okay.
It's a bridge that has a 12-inch water line on it that's privately owned, and so we've been moving very slowly with advancing that bridge because we don't want to have to replace the water line. But Caltrans is pushing us a bit to make it happen. So.
With a lot of these projects, I'm assuming that you have looked at the developments that are in the pipeline and the opportunities that may exist to garner funds from developers to pay for some of these things. Is there a developer anywhere near the Rocks Road?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
And is that Aromas Water that owns that?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Also on the River Park Trail, Commissioner DeVries,
Ranch.
I believe the Parks
I don't know if
Commission
it's owned by
actually has earmarked
Oh, could be.
money that could go towards that. And when I was on it was about $2 million. So
That's wonderful.
they could put some hardscape in. It's got to be hardscape money. So they could put in some infrastructure in hardscape, but the partnerships would come together to help with, like, say, the Y or somebody to help maintain, run, and partner up with that. So
Yeah,
might be
absolutely.
able to pull it off.
I think that's wonderful. And then this question back to the director through the chair. Lime Kiln Road Bridge replacement. A number of years ago, we approved, through a little bit of controversy, an application by the Inns Quarry to increase their capacity. And one of the conditions of approval was that they make improvements to Lime Kiln Road, which all of us who've ever been on Lime Kiln Road know that is a little more than a glorified golf cart path. To call it a road is almost like an understatement.
Sure.
So, my question is, did anything happen as regards the entitlement that this county bestowed upon the Inns Quarry towards fees or funds or things that could be used for the Lime Kiln Road Bridge replacement?
I have to say I don't know. This is the first I've heard of that, but I will absolutely go back and look.
Was anybody on the commission with me when we did that, Jeff?
Can you remember roughly when that was?
I don't remember that one.
It was years ago. Barbara, you were around.
I think I was around. It's been a while, but it must have been somewhere around me.
But we always were cognizant of that bridge. And we said that, okay, you can, drive many truckloads per day on that road as long as you agree to improve it and pay for it. So what happened to that?
To give you some time idea on that, I remember I went out and looked at the project with Supervisor Marcus. And Supervisor Marcus was only on the board for 4 years, so that gives you somewhat of a narrow window.
And when was that? Maybe, how long's Donnie been out of office now?
5.
Is this the old concrete? Is this the old
9
concrete
years,
bridge?
9 years he's
9?
been off the board, I think.
I think it's,
Are you talking about the old concrete bridge that's out there? That's actually on Cienega Road, but it's close to Lime Kiln, or is this actually on Lime Kiln Road?
I think it's on Lime Kiln.
This is a
I
wooden
think they already
bridge.
did a bypass around that old bridge that you're talking about. Back in the day, you had to go dip
Yeah.
down and go through that little
Right.
narrow thing.
Right.
The county's already done a bypass around that.
Yeah.
And so then as you're heading south towards Calera,
Mm-hmm.
and if you hang a right on Lime Kiln and head towards the Inns property,
Right.
west, there's a bridge. And if a semi-truck and a motorist confront one another on this bridge, one of them is going to lose.
Yeah,
This
no,
thing is
no.
narrow.
Yeah.
Am I talking about the right bridge?
yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
our,
that bridge is so insignificant, I almost didn't even know what you're talking about, because there's a bunch of tules out there in a certain area where there's a lot of water,
that's right.
but I never really noticed that
Well,
it's
it's-
any kind of a bridge.
It's so infrequently traveled that I don't think it ever becomes an issue, except when you've got a pretty, significant mining and trucking operation going on. And the point is that there was a little bit of controversy back in those years about whether we should expand the use permit granted to that Inns Quarry. Let's say they were granted this much, they wanted to go up to this much.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, but that's going to put pressure on the roads, and you need to pay your fair share. So I'm pretty
Well,
confident that there was some condition of approval in there that they addressed the roads.
thank you very much. I'll go look. Our mining records tend to be pretty good, and so I should be able to go back and find that, and we'll track it down.
If there's an opportunity there, I know the Inns family; they're friends of mine. I'm not trying to stick it to them, and if they're watching tonight, love you guys. But
They're not
however,
hearing you.
fair's fair, and if that was the bargain for exchange that was struck back then, it should be followed through.
Yeah. Yeah, good, okay.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I noticed there's nothing for Fairview and Los Viuras Bridge. That bridge is kind of narrow.
Fairview and where?
Los Viuras Road. But what's it at? After Comstock, going north on Fairview. That little bridge there's a cutting shed, and there's a Churchill's one way.
Talking about by Rosa Morada? Or
No,
on
past
further?
down.
North of Rosenberg.
That bridge is real narrow. I
Is
don't
it-
know why you would improve that to a wider bridge.
So it's actually Fairview Road over a creek or a gully?
Yes.
Stream? Okay.
You know where it's at?
What's it?
You know where you go down to get those Christmas trees?
Oh yeah.
You make a real sharp turn to,
So it's on Los Fibros.
yeah. Los Viuras.
Los
No.
Viveros. Yeah.
Los Viuras is
Not on
Fairview. Fairview and Los Viuras.
Yeah.
It's Fairview Bridge.
Mm-hmm. And actually, consistent, since you're on that, we should probably look at all of Fairview and see about improvements up and down an entire, signalization, because
Yes.
a lot of these subdivisions are probably going to end up hitting Fairview and heading out that way and on out towards the Four Corners. Or they're going to come down to McCloskey and they're going to run out that way to get onto 25. And we should probably look at McCloskey as well as main artery ways.
Okay, I don't have McCloskey on here. I do have on the first page of Roads and Bridges is a Fairview Road corridor study.
Okay,
And
there it is.
and maybe wasn't hearing correctly. I have a head cold. On the next page, Fairview Road replacement at Las Viboras. Is that the bridge you were talking about?
Yeah, there's no, year one, you have no money.
No, there's no money in it, and it's been carried on the program, on the unconstrained program for a while with no money.
Pay for it.
We can
They'll name it after.
make a
All the
recommendation.
developers pay a little bit for it.
We can make a recommendation to the board that they fund that, if the commission would like to do that, absolutely.
Come on, Robert.
That would be a part of the broader Fairview Road corridor study.
Rodriguez
No.
Bridge.
Pay the big bucks for this, mate. Go for it, dude.
No, they should make some money should be going there and fix that bridge, make it wider. Like Commissioner Pierce says, all of Fairview Road
Yeah.
should be fixed.
I missed the corridor study thing, but I think that's a good idea, but also McCloskey, it's floodplain, it's got flood issues
Yeah.
in there. They've got
From-
issues in there as well. And I think after you get the awards homes project on the city side and Scalioti's project going around Cielo Vista, that is going to add more stress to the Fairview, and we need to address that.
So you're thinking corridor study or just the individual?
Corridor study from Ridgemark all the way down to 156 on Fairview, and then
On McCloskey.
looking at the side arteries that are going to be main arteries coming off of Fairview, which would be, I would think, McCloskey.
Mm-hmm. From San Felipe.
What does a corridor study mean?
That means that we'll look at all of the intersections and the roadway section, what it wants to be when it grows up. For example, Fairview Road, now a 2-lane road. Does it the general plan right now, or the road design standards call for it to be a 4-lane road with a paved median, a flat median, not even a curb, with paved shoulders, so it's essentially an expressway. But we're thinking that we don't need a bypass around a bypass, which it just pushes the traffic further east. And so we're looking at doing either a narrower 2 or 4-lane roadway section with a planted median, with traffic circles and or signals along the stretch, so the traffic is at 35 miles an hour instead of 70 miles an hour.
Good luck.
Because Shore Road,
6-mile stretch with virtually nothing to stop traffic from just hauling through there.
yeah, because Shore Road also gets real packed on,
Yep.
from all the way to, I want to say Pacheco Pass. It's packed,
Yeah.
bumper to bumper.
What about Santa Ana Road, where the school is that ours?
I don't
We need
know.
to make-
Is
we
Santa Ana Road a county road?
Part of it, half of it.
Part of it, I think.
Actually, the serve influence goes down in the middle of it, and it's.
Oh, that's the
city's
one that we
on
own half.
of it, and we're on the other half.
That's right. We talked
But
about that
that's a
intergov, I
primary
think.
That's probably going to take some growth out there
Yeah.
because of the bypass. Anything on the inside of that, I would think the city would say, okay, that's fine, we'll take it in. Anything on the outside, I mean, it would be kind of what we would do.
Mhm.
But Santa Ana Road would probably be good to look at too, because you can run down there a ways. The only trouble with that area is the school,
Right.
and that kind of is worrisome. And they've got a developer down there already improving some of the roadway benchmarks down there on part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll put that on the list to think about.
Director Barnes, I want to put something in your memory bank that I think would be a helpful planning tool for this commission and the Board of Supervisors and therefore the community going forward. I know this may be a bit of a reach, but I'm kind of an outside the box thinker type of guy. I think that planning often involves anticipating. And it's true that we have 4,000 or 5,000 units in the hopper right now.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it to be also true that most of those folks are going to work north of here.
Since
So
we don't
as
have
regards-
jobs here, that's a fair assumption, yeah.
Pardon me?
Since we don't have many jobs here, that's a fair assumption, yes.
Yeah.
We should work on jobs here, too.
Yeah. Since Apple Computer is one of the richest corporations in the world,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a pretty safe assumption. And Facebook and Google and Yahoo and eBay and everybody else, Adobe, they're all up there. So I think it's therefore safe to assume that with a lot of these developments that we're going to see, we need to be cognizant of traffic patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to kind of, again, to segue off of Commissioner Pierce's comments, we have to know this development that's, like, let's take, I know it's not agendized, Barbara, and I'm not talking about a specific project that's not on the agenda, but let's take Sunnyside Estates. How are those folks going to get to Sunnyvale? Which routes are they going to take?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to end up on Union Road and take that to 156? Are they going to wind their way to 25? What arterial routes are they going to take? It'd be nice to just see a chart. Like, this is what we
Okay.
expect over the next 20 years in San Bernardino County. We expect this kind of growth, and we expect that they're all going to be, a lot of them are still going to be going north, and this is the way they're going to get north. And then we plan for that with our streets and our roads accordingly.
Sure.
It just seems to make a lot of sense.
Don't
So-
we have some of that in the general plan? We already have some of those elements actually in the general plan.
There's some of that in
we've
the general
addressed.
plan, yeah.
Some
And we
of
can
them.
we can certainly provide you more. I didn't mean to interrupt. We can certainly provide you with more. We have a lot of data on that. Without branching off into a general plan update, I guess we can talk about general plan consistency and general plan in general terms. One of the things that we're looking to implement is a look at the roadway design standards and the entire traffic modeling system. In fact, there's a state law that requires us to change the way we look at traffic impacts of subdivisions from LOS, level of service, to VMT, vehicle miles traveled. The idea is to get the focus away from specific intersections and look at the transportation system more broadly, and from the perspective not only of automobiles, but bicyclists and pedestrians and transit users, vehicle miles traveled. And so that will get a lot to your concerns about exporting commuters to other parts of the world.
I think it should be a part of every application that we get.
We do a
As
traffic
these
study.
applications come forward, 400
do-
units, 200 units, 1,000 units, how are these folks going to get to work? What roads are they going to take? We need to understand that
Yeah.
as much as we try to understand CEQA and land use and salamanders.
Yeah,
You know?
Ray
How
and
are
I
these folks
just
going to get to work?
Ray and I just had a conversation about this in another context, and one of the things I am trying to do is to put together groups of like projects, if you will, to look at the ramifications of all of those 6 or 8 things together rather than one at a time, because it doesn't make sense to look at
You can't.
projects one at a
You can't
time.
do it one at a time because a couple of months ago, year before, I was talking about Southside Road in that area and wanting a specific plan. Kind of let's try to understand this area that's going to face a lot of development pressure coming forward. Okay, well, I guarantee you, all those folks are going to go north on Southside Road, and they're probably going to turn left on Union, and they're probably going to head towards 156.
And go right out there by the Del Webb and just,
Yep.
yeah.
So that type of traffic flow, and therefore those types of impacts, and what we require of these folks when they come to build, needs to be understood
Yes, sir.
at the front end, so that we can exact the type of things that we need from these developers when
Yep.
they come.
Yep.
And if
We-
we don't know, we won't ask or require.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon we had the first of the board's General Plan Implementation Ad Hoc Committee meetings. I think I got that right. General Plan Implementation Ad Hoc Committee. And what are the priorities? And at that, we suggested to the board, and I think that they agreed that the first three priorities would be housing, particularly affordable housing program, CEQA review to bring the CEQA guidelines that we use as a county into modern times, and to do this LOS VMT thing, and also economic development. And so we'll be looking at those three things specifically, starting right away, but we're going to be bringing to the commission every month general plan implementation stuff, and we'll try not to do a shotgun approach. We're going to create a program that we hope you can understand and follow, and part of our task for the February meeting for the commission is to lay out that menu and show you how that work plan will work, so that you can follow along, make suggestions about priorities, and so on. This conversation leads right into that, and that's exactly where we want to go.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Do you guys take in consideration of all the, the landfill wants to up its 10-ish, of all the out-of-town trucks coming in, they're running down Fairview or they're running down Highway 25 and kind of across McCloskey. I see that a lot already.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of big rigs.
Yes,
coming
there
down.
are. We're well aware of the landfill issues and the roadway impacts.
The traffic generated by them.
Traffic generated, the pavement condition, they tear up the roads. There's unsafe speeding. There's all kinds of issues. That's an entirely different conversation. Not the roadway part, but the landfill part, and where we go with that. And I think over the next 6 months or so, we'll have another conversation that we'll bring to the commission and the board about ways to rethink the landfill operation a little bit, and how to.
Maybe as director should impose or to the plan to supervisors a traffic tax for out of towners.
Traffic impact fee.
Yeah, for roads.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Yep.
every other city does it. You go out, you're from out of town or other cities, they charge you more, unless you're local.
Good idea.
Get $10 a truck. Can you imagine how much that is?
I'd like to add to Mr. DeVries' comments on planning to add to it, and I'd like to implement parks elements into that. So I'd like to take it back to the parks, maybe make sure their master plan is updated, and also kind of talk these planning talks with them on what they think, because they see the bigger picture on parks, and they're seeing River Park right now. But if we're growing out that way, maybe there should be another larger park out in that, out Fairview or something.
Have you been reading my general plan implementation notes? Because you guys are right on with all this stuff. It's exactly right.
Yes.
So,
We're going to update the Parks Master Plan. It's 6 years old now.
Yeah.
It needs updating anyway. It's going to go in a little bit different direction, I think. We have some real good talent to do that. We'll bring that to you, the Parks Commission, as well. Probably in the next, I would say it'll be well before June. Sometime this spring we'll have
Would
that.
it be possible, and you guys tell me if you even want to, but would it be possible to maybe have a dual meeting between parks?
Absolutely.
A dual meeting between Parks and Planning Commission, because I think we could really learn a lot from where they are, where they're going to, maybe what they see out 20 years. So if we could maybe get something like that going, that would be pretty cool.
But they have to sit down there. We're up here.
They're an advisory group, so we can sit them next to
We
us.
had to go to the city of Hollister one time where we had to sit down there.
Sit down
Hollister guys stayed up top.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But I think
Territory.
just to reiterate Commissioner Pierce's comments, this year, 2016, going forward, I know I speak on behalf of this entire commission, who are my friends and who I've worked with for a long time. We're all about communication and collaboration, and that holds true with not only the Parks Commission, but the City of Hollister Planning Commission. City Hollister, City Council, San Juan Bautista, Planning and City. Anytime you guys sense that there might be some benefit to us all getting together, let's all get together and let's talk about it. It's so much more efficient that way.
We might need to rent the entire Vets Park to do that, but
Let's do it.
we should.
Let's do it. Let's all get together and let's talk about it.
Yep.
And something like Commissioner Pierce is stating as regards parks could not be more important to this
That's
community.
a great
I
idea.
don't think.
Great idea. We'll make that happen the next
All right.
couple of months. Did other things pop out at you from the list that?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the, under materials and recycling facilities, on the recycling of used motor oil, are we actually going to have a facility where the public can bring their used motor oil? And that will be separate from the normal landfill every quarter? It's a separate program totally?
Yes. Right now, that facility exists. It's in the courtyard on Southside Road, but it's behind the fence, behind the gate, and so you have to know it. And we don't advertise it, so you have to know it's there, and you have to be able to get there during business hours for the Public Works office to get through to recycle your oil. So the idea here is to create an accessible, not in the ADA sense, but an accessible outside the fence recycling depository for used oil and other materials if we can, but used oil specifically.
And then
And
the
advertising.
county will pay for the disposal of?
You know what they're doing now is, and what I've seen out there. Remember at the end of the planning building, but they have a gate that gets you into the roads. You'd see gallon containers of oil just dropped at the fence on the road there, and it was so when the recycling guy came in, he could just pick it up and take them on.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's real informal.
I never noticed
for those
that.
people after hours or stuff, and they're not really supposed to do that, but they still know that's the place they're supposed to take.
Well, but we thank them for that instead of dumping it somewhere.
Right, that's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
And as long as they don't mix it with gasoline. That can get very dangerous.
Anything else? Mr. Barnes, I had a question about, through the chair, Fire Station number 3.
Yes, sir.
And I know Hollister City has Station number 1, which is over there by McKinnon. Station 2, which is
On Union,
on Union.
off of Union.
Station 3 is the one on Fairview.
Fairview and Rosa Morada.
Isn't that Cal Fire? Why is the county or the city paying anything for that? I thought that was the state of California.
No, this is a separate facility. This will be a Hollister / San Benito fire station. Cal Fire has a different mission and
Will it be on the same property?
no.
As far as the sequel, I believe it's going to be studied at the old Go Kids,
Right.
What? Say it again,
where
Barbara.
Go Kids used to be.
Go Kids?
Go Kids, off
know
of
that.
Fairview.
The wire fence.
Yes.
That was
Wire fence.
the old North
Fire
County
fence
School.
with a playground inside and a couple of little buildings.
Oh, okay.
That's county property, correct?
Yes, it is.
Because they used to belong to the school
By the
district
water district?
way back in the 60s.
It's right next to the turn on. You turn down Rosa Morada. It's on the right.
Right next to the water district office, then.
No, no, no.
San
Oh,
Benito?
no. That's
No,
at
no.
Mansfield. This is all the way down to Rosa Morada.
Oh.
That's McCloskey, Longtree Road.
So has
They'll be able to respond to the development on the east part of town and to the south a little bit faster because they can just shoot down Fairview Road after that station, when that station is, if that's a selected site and after it's built.
So, I mean, this is obviously completely up to the supervisors and not me, so this is just for my own interest and curiosity. Will this be the county's first fire station?
They have one out at
Being
Tres
on
Pinos.
county land.
The volunteers?
The old volunteer station out at Tres Pinos.
Well, yeah, but the county's that. Well, will this be the first official county fire station?
On county land, you mean?
Funded by
Within the county as opposed to the
built
city.
and constructed on county land, funded by the county.
Well, my history doesn't go back very far, but it would be the only one that exists now, yes. You may recall that this was the station that was proposed for a temporary location near the jail a couple of years ago, or a year ago. and that there was a free building that was involved, and the building went away, and so the fire station went away. Well, this is an alternative site that's actually even better in terms of response times and so on.
Understand. Well, that's up to the supervisors.
Would there be like a co-op between the city and the county maintaining all that, or how is that going to work?
It's a joint fire department.
Joint fire.
So
okay.
the existing operating agreement would simply be extended to include a fire station number 3, I would guess.
Okay.
I don't think. By the way, I don't think you guys should call it number 3. Number 1 and number 2 are City of Hollister. This would be County number 1. It's not
okay.
But
no, that's a good.
The city and
We're not in the naming department, so we'll let the.
Yeah, but when they're doing a 911 call out for station numbers, it might be kind of important to have that. My only concern about this location is after the last rains, across the street was underwater.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Part of this site is within the flood zone.
Yeah.
Where the station itself would be is not.
It's a little higher, yeah.
Yeah. We recognize the flooding issues there. Part of that will be taken care of with the Fairview Road redesign, but
Have some extra dirt there.
and part of it will be taken care of by actually digging out the culverts that haven't been touched in 4 or 5 years, and the crews were out there this past week, I believe, working on that. Not until after, not until after it rained, sadly, but yes.
It's been fine for 7 years.
There you go.
You know, what the heck?
What could happen?
Because the water does raise on that creek coming there all the
Rosa
way.
Murata was actually almost underwater, and after this last rain, because you've got that creek down there by Jarvis into Rosa Murata, and something broke out there. So, and this is right across the street from that. Yeah, so it's not in the floodplain, but it's darn close.
It's right next to it, yeah. I just realized as we talked about that I do not have on here, I don't see fire station number 4 or county 2, however you would like to term it, which will be, we're in the early conversation stage about taking over an existing house, a single-family home, in Piscinas, on a property at the Panoche Road, Little Panoche Road intersection,
right by the store there.
right by the store, to serve South County, and staging an engine and a crew of at least 1 or 2 people down there, ultimately.
So Commissioner Lowe was just explaining to me, and especially with her experience as a former supervisor, how this is working with the state of California. I mean, way out there in Panoche, shouldn't that be state of California? Why do we have that responsibility? Why do we have to allocate dollars? And
I'd be willing to bet Commissioner Lowe knows a lot more about that than I do. But they're different missions.
They're
Because
what?
the state of California basically takes the grass fires, and the
County
fires
does
for
residential.
structures is up to the county and the city, because the county has changed.
Even the trucks are different.
well, out there in Piscinas at Panoche Road, what else is there besides that store and a whole bunch of grass? Doesn't that fit the bill? That's
Well,
kind of why I
There's also
asked.
structures out
There's
there.
a lot of
There's a
structures.
lot of ranches
There's-
and some
every,
wineries.
Every
and-
10 miles there's a ranch,
Yeah.
but all right. Well, again, that's to the supervisors. Hopefully, someone's sticking it to California as much as we can. Get them to pay.
The microphone's on now.
It's still a mutual response.
I
though.
don't care. I'll say it. Hi, Governor Brown. We want you to pay. Hi, Sacramento.
It's still a mutual response, though. So CAL FIRE is still going to be out there responding along with us.
Well, I understand that, but let's have them build this station. You know, San Benito County Station 2 or Station 4 or 5. That's ridiculous. Way out there. That's California's responsibility, I think. I'd like to see that money go towards our libraries and our parks and the
Sure.
things
Sure.
that we care about. Not out there. That's California.
Actually, the training for CAL FIRE, though, is how to handle grass fires. And it seems like our training would be more structurally oriented, which can be completely different and would make the difference between losing the house or not.
Yep.
And then response time, too. if we have a shorter response time, then you might be able to save the house instead of responding all the way from in town. So
It could literally be an hour to come from up here to respond down there.
I'll bet.
So I do see that I have what I called a South County Fire Station on the list. I apologize, I didn't. It's been
But
several days since I put this together, and it just was gone. Anyway, it's there. Let me also draw your attention, if I might, to two other ones that are on that same page, and it's on the on the front of the third sheet of paper, and I promise I will number these pages in the future. The two are the Emergency Operations Center and the County Administration Facility Upgrade. Two important projects. The EOC does not have a permanent home, and so we're proposing that it says TBD. We're proposing right now that it be established at the 2301 building where building planning and the sheriff's department are. It doesn't require a very big space, but it's communications intensive, and so that's the reason that it's on the capital program. Probably about $400,000 for that. The county administration facility upgrade is this very building, from this end of the block to that end of the block, and maybe more. Includes the old courthouse building, the prosecutors, the district attorney and probation department building, which is sinking into the ground, the old jail, all of the building, the library and school board building, all of the parking area in between. And what we're thinking is reprogramming this block and creating not the building across the street, but something complementary to that, a modern county facility. So that's what that's about. And again, no funding, multi-year project, but it's been talked about with among staff and with several supervisors.
50,000.
And
Easy.
I know, right, Robert?
Yeah.
I totally did.
Including
No more. 38 million for that.
we should.
30 million for the courthouse.
Yeah. Well,
We were just discussing renaming that, so it's clear that it includes any library and technology improvement,
Yeah.
because they were talking about that we need some sort of library and technology center. So we would fall under that when it.
Right. So the library and technology building has been talked about as a TEL, Technology, Education, and Library Building. And oh, by the way, Starbucks or somebody else to sort of create caffeine and sugar rush and bring people to that wouldn't normally go to a library or an education building.
good idea.
A community center kind of place.
Nice.
And that would be here somewhere downtown, too. Maybe not on this block, but possibly.
Well, I hope personally, I hope the board gets behind the idea of renovating this building and these chambers and so forth, because any of us who have been to or appeared in like Monterey County chambers, for example, it is nice. It's really, really nice. And I think it lends credibility to the process. I think it creates a good impression. I think it shows that we in San Bernardino County are serious about requiring good development and good decisions. It just promotes that. Quite frankly, this is 1974 at best. And it's time for an update. So I hope the board gets behind it.
All we have to do is find the money.
All it takes is money, right?
Just takes
Absolutely. All it takes is money.
Especially presentation of display to.
Yes. Well, one of the things that was on the immediate agenda is some big screens, and monitors. I mean, real monitors, computer interface, so that we can do presentations and mapping, GIS, and that kind of stuff for the board and the public.
That'd be wonderful. Yep.
All right. Other questions? Crazy things that Barnes guy put on the list. Things you don't understand. Things I missed. Anything else?
Commissioners?
You know, you
This is
pulled
not your
Y
last
Road
opportunity
Bridge.
either. I'm sorry?
You pulled Y Road Bridge.
I did, and Rosamarada Road Bridge as well.
Yeah.
I still have to go through some process to take those off of the official list, but that's where this is headed.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion to send this to the board, or?
Yes, we will. A recommendation, or at least a finding. I think there's a finding in this.
Adopt resolution.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2016-02, finding that the proposed fiscal year 16-17 capital budget is consistent with and helps to implement the objectives and goals of the county general plan, and include with these consistencies findings any comments regarding the degree of consistency and other issues identified as a common concern to the Planning Commission and any other recommendations of this commission.
And thank the community for their input.
And thank you to the public.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
It was quiet. They kept real quiet.
We appreciate your orderliness.
We got all that out of the way this morning.
Long motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, we're done. I move we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very
All in
much.
favor? Aye.
That was easy. There you go for your recycling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.